I have enough to create a really awesome, solid business. Could we always use more? Yeah. But you do run the risk, because we've been around those guys. It's a catch-22, man. If you really want to go out and get it and you need that hustle and that, like, kill mentality, it's really also then hard to have, like, you know, the soft, nice edges and being emotionally intelligent and caring about others. And like, it's, and so good luck trying to find that middle ground, but that's what I'm trying to find.
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. I'm incredibly excited for this one. I've been following this guy for a couple of years now, and everything he's putting out has been incredibly fantastic. I've got Benny Fisher. He's the founder and visionary at Big Fish Contracting, co-founder of the Arena Mastermind, business growth leader at Contractor Dynamics, and host of the Big Fish Cares podcast. He's won the Fast 50 Pittsburgh Award for one of the 50 fastest growing companies. He was the opening keynote speaker at the EOS conference, and you guys know I love my EOS, so I'm excited to talk about that, as well as he interviewed Gary Vee on his podcast, plus many more. His expertise is in marketing, personal branding, contracting, and EOS. Benny, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Doug, man. This is awesome. I've been following you for a couple of years now too, so this is going to be cool.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get right into it. You know, I'm a big Gary Vee fan. You know, I'm not deep in his content or anything, but I remember when he came out, what was it, like 7-8 years ago? And he definitely inspired me. He definitely helped me be more present with my family, helped me kind of focus on what was important, experiences, you know, over materials, that whole deal. What was that like? You know, and then one of the things I noticed too is, you know, because I listened to roughly 25 minutes of the 27, right? And so I noticed that you guys have a relationship already. And so how is that? You know, is it like a don't meet your heroes type situation, or what's that like?
Everybody keeps asking me about that whole don't meet your heroes thing. I never actually heard that until people kept asking me, like, is he really the same in real life? And I'm like, no, man, he's better. He's a better human being even in real life, you know, because it's really hard to tell from, you know, the social media clips, the 30 seconds, the you know, that Jersey New Yorker in him, right? Fast talker, throws the F-bomb around a lot. He kind of rubs some people the wrong way just because of the way he talks, but he's pure, man. His content is pure. He's pure. He's a real human being. He's authentic, like everything. I've never seen a more authentic human being to actually who he is, like behind the scenes and on the screen. And you said, you know, I think you've been following him for 7 or 8 years, but he started on YouTube, believe it or not. When YouTube first came out, he was doing wine videos when he was working for his dad's wine business. And then he grew a social media following, and then he quit working for his dad, I think, you know, in his mid-30s, and they started VaynerMedia. You know, it's a, you know, Fortune 500 media company, marketing company, agency. And then I got in his ecosystem in 2021 when he came out with VeeFriends. I'd always been a big fan, just like the rest of us, and I invested in VeeFriends. It's an NFT cartoon thing.
I remember that.
He's trying to get his message out through VeeFriends, so that way the characters are actually getting his message out. So then that way, you know, he can't be throwing the F-bomb around the 7-year-old. So, and I think that this is how he's going to do it. And so I saw what he was doing, and I invested the money, and then I got in kind of his inner circle. I wouldn't say his inner circle, but his ecosystem. So like I probably do like maybe 7 to 8 meetings with him a year. I'm actually going to New York City on April 29th. Me and Joseph Hughes, we got champagne and caviar dinner with him at his little restaurant he just invested in called Little Maven. And so there's going to be like 20 of us there. It's very intimate. I got to go to his birthday party last year at Chuck E. Cheese. Like, so he's like a big kid. He's 48 years old. And he's just having a ball. He runs a $250 million marketing agency. I was up in that's where I did the podcast at. And that was really cool to see just like how it all works, man, like at a big level.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, man. I think Gary Vee and Eric Thomas are probably two of the people that influenced me early in my career as an entrepreneur. And I think those are the two that I would probably like just fanboy over. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot. I like to let things happen organically and naturally, you know what I'm saying? And but those two, just because it was so early and they influenced me so much, I just like, I know I would completely fanboy, get the picture, get the autograph if I could. You know what I'm saying?
I did that for the first couple of times. I remember even before I invested in V-Friends, Gary, like, he actually goes to baseball card shows, and I was big into sports collectibles, and I would go to the card show, and I saw him set up at a booth. I bought a Michael Jordan rookie card off of him as my first interaction with him because I wanted to just beat him. So I spent like $2,500 in this Michael Jordan card. It was overpriced by $500, and I knew it. And he's like, "No, man, this card's going to be worth so much money." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to give you the money." I said, "But here's what I want. I want a selfie, and I want you to sign a pair of." I was wearing Gary V sneakers at the time. For the first time ever, I saw an entrepreneur release a sneaker, and I was so used to wearing Jordans back when I was a kid. I was like, "You know what? I gotta get on this entrepreneur thing," because Gary's really the reason that I started. I had to start my business. I was kind of forced to start my business. I got fired by my uncle at his roofing company. But to be able to create the brand the way that I did, I started off with this little cute fish behind my screen here, and he had a hammer in his hand for my contracting company. And so that was all from Gary V. He said, create a brand, great customer service, use technology. And so in the roofing industry 9 years ago, like that was a big deal, man. Like nobody was doing it like that. And so that's how I got off to a fast start in business and, got to where I'm at today. And I attribute most of that in the early days to Gary V.
I love it, man.
The refinement of business I attribute to Gino Wickman because Gary doesn't really teach you what to do after you get your business started.
Yeah.
It's like hustle, create a bunch of chaos. And it's like, all right, now what? And then that's when the EOS life came into play. But
that's a great
cool
transition
journey.
Into my next question, which is, I've been running EOS. I ran EOS in my sales org for 5 years before I winded it down. And now obviously I run it in my consulting business as well. And it's been huge, but one of the things I loved about it is the transition was not hard because those were things I did naturally as an entrepreneur. And that was kind of my talent, I guess you could say, is to make complicated things simple, to create systems, operations, SOPs, all that stuff. It was just like, that was my instinct, right? Everybody has that thing that made them a good entrepreneur early on, and then they had to round out the rest, and I'm still working on rounding out the rest. I think all of us are, but EOS has been such a huge influence on me. And you just opened the EOS conference as a keynote speaker. So what was that experience like?
That was the best experience I've ever had to date in business. I can tell you that. It was surreal, man. Being in, I've spoken, we talked a little bit before the show, 200 people, 500 people. I think 600 was my biggest ever. This had a stage. This had like 4 jumbotrons next to me. There's 2,300 people in the audience. Gino was there. I had my wife there. I had my integrator at Big Fish there. Joe Hughes at Contractor Dynamics was there. All of our teams were there. My EOS implementer, Ken, was there. So all the people that were really instrumental in helping me get to where I got over the last 4 years, because one of the transitions that I had to make, I've always been a salesman. So I've known sales since I was 18 years old. And going from salesman to CEO was one of the hardest transitions that I ever had to make because I had to learn new skills, right? And through EOS and through all of the teams around me, I was able to make that transition. They heard my story. Someone at EOS heard my story. I think they had me on a podcast just because they wanted to hear my EOS story. And then the lady that had me on the podcast, Pam Kasenki, she referred me to the people that book speakers for the conference and said, "Hey, would you be willing to tell your journey and your story?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, man, that would be awesome." And I kind of manifested that 2 years before I was at the conference for the first time. And I remember hearing they always put an entrepreneur up first to kind of get the stage set, right? And I remember thinking, man, my story, if I was afraid to share at that time, I had never shared my story publicly. I have a pretty wild story of, bankruptcy in my early 20s. I sold drugs, got in trouble, felonies. I was homeless for a couple of days. I got robbed at gunpoint. I ended up overdosing on drugs 2 years into my big fish journey, like back in 2017. So not even that long ago. So I had a very up and down, you know, a lot of demons, a lot of battles, a lot of things that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, go through. But I was very afraid to talk about it. But when I heard that entrepreneur come out on stage 2 years ago and really share some vulnerable things, and I always heard Gary Vee talk about being authentic, but like I always thought, like if I was, you know, authentic, I can still be me, but I don't have to share all the bad stuff that happened to me because I don't want anybody to like not like me. But that was actually holding me back, and I didn't realize that. So I started sharing my story a little bit. And so I started with my team, and I shared it with them because they didn't even know. And then I started sharing it with some of my family, extended family. They didn't know. I started sharing it on podcasts. A couple people invited me on their podcast. And then I started speaking at industry conferences in the roofing industry. And one thing leads to another, man. You just start, when you start to share your story, you get to be more bold, and you can really help a lot of people. And they heard that. And so they put me up, and it was such a great honor. And Gino Wickman did the end of the day keynote, and he mentioned my name. He mentioned Benny's name 15 times during that talk. If you would have been playing a drinking game, everybody would have been drunk because it wasn't planned at all. Like I had never talked to Gino Wickman for longer than 30 seconds before in my life. But he heard that talk, and it was basically the story that he's heard 1,000 times, you know, from working with entrepreneurs. And, you know, did you know that 250,000 businesses run on EOS?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Did you?
He said that. Like, I'm like, he's like, we're so proud that we have 250,000 businesses running on EOS. And when I hear your story about how you're running on EOS and everybody else's, it's like, that's incredible to like have that kind of vision for like such a simple system. You know, you mentioned it, it's simple, but it's not easy. You know, it's hard to get people to buy into this because as entrepreneurs, we always want to change things up, right? We don't really like we don't like simple and easy for whatever reason, you know?
No, that's real, man. That's real. Well, and that's 250,000 that are like have filled out a form or registered or raised their hand. You know, there's got to be at least another 250,000 that read the book and just started implementing it. You know what I'm saying? And so, but no, it's definitely had a huge impact in my life, and it makes my integrator brain happy, you know? So I scored an 89 on integrator and 86 on visionary. And then I had my team take it, and it was like 92 visionary and like 89 integrator, you know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of cool to see our different results, you know, on me basically. But
well, that means you're a stud, man. There's not too many people that are high in both. So it's either a blessing or a curse. It could be a blessing and it could be a curse because you're probably always in both seats mentally. For me, there's no mistake. I'm pure visionary. There's zero integrator in me at all. Like I think I've scored a 98 visionary and a like 40 integrator.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I need guys like you to partner with, man. That's
fantastic, dude. Because that you know, it makes so much sense why you're a fractional visionary, because it's another level. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody likes to own that visionary, but it's different to actually execute it. And so, you know, the fact that you're doing it at a fractional level is huge.
Well, it's not a full-time job. I mean, like it's like all I really got to do is go in and talk to a business owner. Especially a lot of these guys, you know, they're either sales guys or they're like operators, right? Like, let's just take the trades. You know, they either swung a hammer or they're good at sales, but they've never really. They got to be in a business ownership most of the time because no one else wanted them, or they got sick and tired of working for someone else.
Yeah.
But because they're moving so fast and they're doers, they're human doers. They're not necessarily human beings.
Yeah.
They don't sit still enough to like visualize what's possible and see. I have a gift and I'm able to talk to someone for like an hour or two and really figure out who they are more than they actually even know who they are. And then I'm able to like kind of inspire them and give them vision on like what's possible, and then kind of set up the framework to make them successful. But again, it's not a 40-hour, 80-hour a week job. I can usually do that in an hour or two a week, or like even in one session, I can get somebody moving. So that way they can start to find the integrator, to start to find the sales manager, right? And make those companies run better.
Yeah. I mean, so many people think they need to be the visionary and try to fit that square peg in a round hole, but I don't think that's necessarily necessary all the time. I want to go back to what you said about the authenticity piece and telling your story. I think that's massive. And anybody that listens to my podcast has heard my story probably several times now. And it doesn't paint me in the best light in my 20s, which it sounds like yours doesn't paint you in the best light in your 20s either. But there's something that you said is once you start being authentic, you also start being bold. And I think there's an energy shift that happens there. Once you put that out there in the world and it's like, hey, I was this person and I grew into this person and I'm not anywhere near where I want to be now, but I'm still better than then. You know what I'm saying? It just gives everybody that one rung in the ladder to be able to aspire to, and it's not this huge gap. It's not like I'm saying, hey, I need to be Gary Vee in a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? It's saying, hey, I need to do what Benny did and overcome these challenges, by the end of the year or in a couple months or whatever the case. And I need to put an action plan in place to do that. And whenever you can create that kind of inspiration, I mean, you only need 20 followers to do that. You know what I'm saying? And then you go super deep with them, and your impact, to me, when that happens is sometimes even more in a single person's life than, let's just say, Gary Vee, because you're meeting them at where they're at. You know what I'm saying?
That's so true.
I think
one of the things that you said there, I want to hit on real quick. I used to try to be like other people when I was in my 20s and maybe even in my 30s. And I'm like, when I was in car sales, when I was 18 years old, and this is back in 2000. So this is before a lot of you guys that are listening were probably you guys are probably still kicking and screaming at school. But there was a guy named Grant Cardone that was hosting a workshop in Cleveland. This is pre-social media. Yeah. This is pre-smartphone. Grant Cardone's probably like 40 years old. I'm like 20. And I see this good-looking dude. He's got this Rolex. He's got his suit. He's got his tie. I mean, he's smooth talking. I mean, he's just like, I'm like, for the first time. And I grew up in a small town. I grew up very Baptist. I didn't get to see the world at all, man. Like I didn't know like what else was out there. And I saw this man. I'm like, wow, I want to be like him when I grow up. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any other training other than that. And then I started to try to hustle and try to get like all that stuff. And it didn't serve me very well. And then I would see other people and I'd be like, oh, I want to be like them, because I didn't want to be like myself because I didn't like who I was for whatever reason. I think it was either the environment, the teachers at school, the kids picking on me, I have ADHD. And so like that could cause a lot of pain when you're younger. And so you don't really feel like you belong. Right. And so then you're trying to be like someone else so people will embrace you. Well, that led me down a really bad path. And it wasn't until I started understanding this whole authenticity and be who you are, and it's okay to be you. And I kept watching Gary, and I'm like, yeah, dude, he's like this little scrappy, New Yorker, like just, he doesn't care, dude. He just lets it out. And I'm like, and it serves him well. I said, I can't be like Gary. I said, but I can emulate, I can be me and just keep being me. And the right people will be attracted to that, and the wrong people will be repelled from that. And EOS talks about that with core values. But yeah, I think it's really important to figure out who you are. And then, like Gino Wickman says, let your freak flag high and just wave it with a badge of honor. And people will love that because people value that. Because have you ever been to a party before, like before you found out who you were? And like, let's say it's like a birthday party. You got friends from work coming over. You got old high school buddies, some college guys, your family, maybe your girlfriend or your wife's parents. And you're a different person individually to all these people and all these different factions of your life. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, I got to come out and perform at this party, but like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be because I'm literally a different version of myself to all these people. And it's like, that's traumatic. Like, it's hard to operate like that. And so I'm going to encourage everyone that's listening, just be yourself. There's going to be some people that don't like it. And you're going to have to get through that. I said, but you're going to be able to live a life that's your truest self,
I love it. I mean, yeah, it's an evolution and everything you just said, and I don't think there's ever an end in sight to becoming more authentic. Right. And, I've definitely been there before. My accent used to change with who I was talking to. You know what I'm saying?
You're a Texas guy, right?
Yeah, I'm in Texas.
Yeah.
So if I was talking to Mexican friends, I get real Mexican. If I was talking to people from, like New York, I'd get real New York. You know what I mean? Like, and it was one of the, I started noticing myself doing it when I was in my early 20s. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why does that naturally happen to me. But what I realized is it was a coping mechanism and a way for me to fit in because of my childhood and everything, you know? So one of the things you do in your late 20s is you address all the shit from your childhood that caused all the bad things you did in your early 20s, you know what I'm saying? And so hopefully you start growing and developing and all that stuff. But that's one of the things I realized. It was the way that I fit in was to start changing my dialect, the words I would say. And it's a natural thing, but I was really good at it, you know?
Well, how long have you been in sales? I mean, because I feel like they teach that in sales. They teach you to mirror. And so a lot of people think of mirroring like that, or like they have to act like that person or talk like that person. And really it's more just respond at their level and have more empathy and things like that. But like when Jordan Belfort talks about mirroring, he almost makes it sound like that you have to copy them, like, and like be like just like them, which can again lead that. And if you're in sales, I can see how you have all those opportunities to do that because you're all these fresh touches and like you have you're just more in that environment to where actually to practice that, and then you could create that bad habit. How'd you break that? Like, what was the?
So I was probably one of the people that impacted me the most, that kind of met me where I was Roy Vaden. I don't know if you've heard of him before. He's big with brand builders now.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Violet uses and Eric Thomas uses. But anyways, he used to work with a company called Southwestern Consulting. And Southwestern Consulting, Southwestern are the foreign exchange students that come to your door to sell you the encyclopedias for school. So those like school books, you know, that kind of go beyond the textbook. And before that, they were the first like Bible salesman. You know what I'm saying? Like door-to-door Bible salesman. And so he introduced me to selling the way customers want to buy. You know, and every time I do this training, I make sure I credit him for that, because the story he gave is amazing about it, where he used to have like 20 sales a week for his books. He was the top salesperson and he wanted to take it even further. And so he was like, I sell a certain way every single time. And what if I change the way that I sell depending on the way that the customer, you know, introduced themselves or came to the door, or their, you know, their body language, their tonality, their volume of voice. And he goes through that training. It's called Selling the Way Customers Want to Buy. There's a fighter, an entertainer, a detective, and a counselor. And depending on which, you can tell within 5 seconds which one they are, and then you adjust according to that, you know? And so it's not so much mirroring, it's more meeting them where they are and speaking to them the way that they want to be spoke to, because I'm a fighter and I need the facts really quick. So I'm going to sell like a detective. And what I like is it's selling and buying, the profiles are the same, you know what I'm saying? But you adjust your selling profile to the buying profile, and your conversion rate goes up.
Yeah, that'll take a 25% closer to a 50% closer once they can learn that skill, because, you know, those people are all divided up, and you lose a lot of sales if you just sell the same way, right? You know, I always draw on a board when I'm doing sales training. I'll just draw 10 dashes of like 10 opportunities. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when, you know, people are selling 2 or 3 deals, you know, that's like kind of like, you know, average, right?
Right.
But like there's these other 7 people over here where if you could just figure out those 3 people that bought off you because they matched the way that you match. And like, it's just, and what doesn't actually anything to do with actually what you did or even anything what they did. It's just, I feel like everybody can close. Everybody can close at 25%.
Yeah.
It's how do you close at 50? How do you grab those other 2.5 or 3 people to like shift and get those people? And that's where the experts are at, man. And that's what I love about sales. It's a game that never stops, because you can never master it. Nobody has 100% closing ratio. And if you do, your prices are too low and you're not doing enough opportunities, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was earlier this year, I was at like 85%, you know. Now, granted, everybody that comes to me is usually through referrals or has been in my social media influence for at least 6 months, you know. So by the time they come to me, they know that they're ready, you know. Yeah. But it went down to 60% because exactly what you said. My prices were too low. You know what I'm saying? And so you just have to disqualify some people, especially when you're selling time for money, you know what I mean, or money for time. And so, but anyways, I want to get back to basically everything that you're doing now, right? And so obviously, you know, being strong in EOS helps with this, but you're doing a lot, and I'm in the early stages of doing a lot, right? So you've got these probably 10 different things going on, maybe 20 streams of income. I have no idea, but you got a lot going on. So do you have any advice for someone entering that season like me, knowing it's, it can quickly become counterproductive if you don't set it up right?
Yeah. So always make sure that your main business is your main business, and like you got that thing like foundationally rock solid. And so for me, that's the Big Fish Contracting Company, and that thing can make me money while I sleep. Only because I've built a great system, a great team. We have a great process. I have great people there. I've been exiting the day to day for the last 2 years. My brother got shot and killed in 2021. And I remember thinking like, I needed to find a bigger purpose for my life, right? I needed to figure out like there's more to than just being the owner of a roofing company, right? Like I got there by accident anyway. It's like, I don't think it was like my life's destination point. And so Gino Rickman wrote a book later that year called The ELS Life. Do what you love with people that you love, have time for other passions, make a huge impact, get compensated appropriately. And I'm like, wow, there's got to be something bigger out there. And so that's when I started sharing my story more. That's when I created a podcast. And then I met up with my friend Joseph Hughes, and he was telling me about how he helps home improvement contractors, specifically in the roofing industry, on how to educate them on marketing. He doesn't do the marketing for them. He just wants to train them so they know how to deal with agencies, how they can hire a marketing manager, how they can do their own in-house content. But then he was more impressed with like how I got my business to where I got it to in such a short period of time. He's like, man, all the contractors that I help on a daily basis, we help them with marketing, but like they all want to live like, they all want to be like that. Like they all want to have a business that if they choose to go work hard in, they can, or if they choose to like go spend time with their family or maybe start another business, they can do that. And it was through that EOS process. And I told Joe, I said, it was also joining peer groups. And I said, I didn't learn all this by myself. I said, I joined peer groups with, 6 to 10, 100 other entrepreneurs. And I would just ask them questions, right? I'd soak up things like a sponge, because I can only learn so much from a book. Right.
Yeah.
And so I got real life advice. And I said, that's how I did it. And so he asked me if I'd be willing to start peer groups inside of Contractor Dynamics. And so we've been doing these monthly group coaching calls. And then, but that's for his high ticket program. It's like a $30,000 a year program. I'm just doing 2 hours a month. I have it's almost like a side gig, a part-time job for me, but I love doing it. I love helping entrepreneurs. But because there were so many people that wanted help, we started a mastermind, a lower offer, a lower ticket, a lot less time, a lot less money invested. And we created the Arena Mastermind. Right. And so I still do 2 hours a month at my company. Like I'm on one leadership meeting call a month just to get the numbers, to check in on the people, to see how they're doing. I sit on the Contractor Dynamics leadership team, a few hours a week. I'm in the Arena Mastermind. I'm doing some coaching there. I'm hanging out with I have a baby at home. I hang out with my family. I go on vacation a lot. I go speak at these conferences. I have my podcast. So I'm doing what I love and what fills my cup. And right now, man, I just love helping other entrepreneurs. Like it is, because I remember how painful it was to be at that stage where like, man, I didn't know how I was going to hire these salespeople and get all this stuff running. And I didn't know how I was going to get all this production thing and marketing, and then like try to learn marketing. Marketing, I've been doing marketing for 14 years and I still feel like I only know like 3%. And so and that's a whole nother world and like another rabbit hole that you can get yourself into. So it can be overwhelming to try to run a business, especially as you break past your first million, get to that $3 million mark. And then once you get to 5 million, you really got to step up your leadership skills, your emotional intelligence. And I'm like, you know what? I've been blessed. First of all, that I'm even alive. I should have been dead. And so I'm not going to take that for granted anymore. And I'm just going to go out and pour my heart and soul into as many entrepreneurs as I can. So then that way they can have a greater impact on the community that they serve, not only their leadership team, their employees, their customers, but also to be a better father, a better husband or a wife or a mom, depending on, who they are. But that's what I'm passionate about doing. So I speak a lot about it because I believe I was born with the gift to be able to do that. And then listening to other people's stories and holding space for them, right? I do meditation, I do some yoga, I do a lot of therapy, I've done silent retreats. So my wife's into that stuff now, and so I'm kind of on that. Awesome. I'm on that woo journey too at the same time. So it's like Gino Wickman talks about in his new book Shine. I strongly recommend it if you're looking for that kind of information. It's like, how do you have impact? Because we all want impact. Everybody that me and you run with, they're all about impact, impact, impact. You know what no one else talks about, though? Is peace. How do you have impact and peace together? And it just flows. And Gino talks about that in his new book, and I'm really digging it because that's, to me, that's the new flex, is how can you have peace and impact?
Man, I've got so much to say about that. So I wasn't really after impact initially because, I wanted to impact my team, but not the impact I want now, right? And it wasn't until I was separated and eventually divorced that I was after that peace, because I realized everything that I had, the whole reason I had created that divorce in the first place was because I couldn't achieve peace,
Me
so
too. I got a divorce 4 years ago.
Oh, no way.
We're like twins, bro. COVID changed my life. COVID, I totally redid my whole life.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah, absolutely. And so I actually remarried to my original wife. So we got back together.
I did not do that. I did not do that.
Well, I was the problem and she forgave me.
Oh, I was probably the problem too, but I still wasn't going back.
Well, and so I found that peace because I was intentionally pouring into my kids and making sure that they came first for the first time in my life. And so that speaks to me a lot because I talk about that a lot. And that's honestly one of the things that EOS did for me during that time period is it created that separation. And I was, probably doing 2.5-3 million a year. This is a sales org, so this is commissions only. And it's herding cats, you know what I'm saying? There's no construction site, there's no ops, except for the recruiting and the training, right? And so, but I was managing to do this with 10 or 15 hours a week. And then the rest, I was either pouring into my kids, at the gym, taking care of myself for the first time in a long time, other than being selfish, right? And so that was a big journey for me for sure. But what really hit is when you said you started doing the peer groups. And one of the things that, like you said, when you join the groups of 100, 200, a couple thousand other entrepreneurs, and you start having these conversations with them, all of a sudden you realize, hey, there's something more here that I haven't been doing. I'm entering a flow state when I'm teaching, I'm entering a flow state when I am helping people with their problems, and so that's one of the things that I'm realizing, or that kind of pulled me out of my sales org, was I started entering that flow state over and over again. And I started getting addicted to it, to the point where I would purchase every ticket, be at every event, you know what I mean? Constantly be soaking up all this stuff, like you said, and I overdid it, you know what I mean? But I definitely recognizing that that's where I want to be. I want to be in front of other entrepreneurs, and whether I'm learning or I'm pouring into them myself or on stage or in that group, like right now, what I do for Win Rate is I coach the SBA group, Small Business Academy,
Yeah,
and
cool. I love Claudia. I love Clifton.
Yeah.
You got Adam over there now. Yeah, it's a pretty cool group.
It's an amazing group, and that's a testament to Claudio being the visionary in the group, even though he can jump down real quick and be the integrator when he's coaching somebody, but so I definitely want to get there. So I appreciate your advice on that. One of the other things I've noticed is as my clients start to create this leverage and start to step away from the day-to-day, they're very worried about their number 2 and their number 3. You know what I'm saying? Because especially when your company is sales centric, so much of our culture in sales is you eat what you kill, you lead from the front. You got to be willing to go out and knock on doors any given day. Now, I never led like that. I led from the back. I knocked doors for 90 days and I never knocked doors again for 13 years, and I went out and shadowed and stuff like that.
10 days. I knocked doors for 10 days to start my business, and I used all the money and started figuring out how to do marketing.
I love it.
But it's a short period of time, right? And that being a leader like that, that's kind of how I am too. That's why, I probably don't have the biggest, by no stretch of the imagination, do I have the biggest sales organization. I have enough to create a really awesome, solid business. Could we always use more? Yeah. But you do run the risk because we've been around those guys. I mean, there's it's a catch-22, man. If you really want to go out and get it and you need that hustle and that like, can't wait to kill mentality, it's really also then hard to have like, the soft, nice edges and being emotionally intelligent and caring about others. And like, and so good luck trying to find that middle ground, but that's what I'm trying to find.
And then you spend too much time in your business instead of working on your business, which is what obviously EOS is all about. And so the reason that I had the growth I did early on, which, just to provide some context, we went from 8 salespeople to 110 in 3 years. Woo! And so, in 3 years. And so it was because I was immediately working on the business, and I didn't care how much I made because I made 30 grand a year before that. So it was just about growth, so I over invested. I even did Cardone's training at one point. That was a big mistake. It turns out it's car sales training. It's not what we do, And so, but anyways, what advice do you have for those entrepreneurs that need to step away? They need to spend more time with their family. They have a 7-figure business. They have the number 2 in place, but they feel like, oh, my number 2 is going to get resentful, or my number 2 is gonna like think I should be spending more time in the business, or, what advice do you have for those guys?
Well, it does happen. And my number 2 is definitely we've had hard conversations before where he feels, I'll never forget. We had a conversation. It wasn't that long ago where, he thought when he came on, and again, I thought too that I was going to be involved more, right? Like I thought I was going to be like, I'm going to be doing sales and marketing. You're going to be doing operations and finance. We're going to rule the world together. And I think that those were the intentions because I didn't know what I didn't know. But as I started to create more space for myself, and I realized I'm not a really good manager. I'm not good at holding people accountable. Like I'm not good at these things. And so, which is very hard for me to say, right? Because I want to be good at everything. And I just kept trying to delegate to other people. And then you're right. I'm over here living this like awesome, cool life on social media. I mean, it got to a point where he's like, hey, I don't think you should post about like all this fun stuff that you're doing. And I go, but that's me. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, and, but then once I showed him, I'm like, hey, I said, I'm doing this to give other people opportunity. I've cut my salary like all the way down to like hardly anything.
Right.
Like at my company because I'm not really there. So I'm not trying to take an employee salary. Right. And so, it just takes a lot of hard conversations, tough conversations, radical candor. There's a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. I think that's good. Gary Vee has a book called 12 and a half that talks about candor a lot. Cause that was one of Gary Vee's weaknesses, was like this, like kind candor, like, cause a lot of times those guys, we either want to fight or we'll flight, right? Same thing with girls. I mean, I guess it's all, humans do this, right? But guys, for real, man, like guys either want to duke it out or like they'll quit, they'll get fired, or we'll hold on to it for a year or two, build a lot of resentment, let it boil up into us, and then we'll just explode or we'll run. And so this is where those same page meetings in EOS come into play. And it's just being open and honest. It's just getting into that danger zone of like, hey, here's how I'm feeling. Like, let's solve that problem. Like, because like I'm living my best life right now and I'm actually better for my company because of it. And if my company needs something, like I'm right there. I'm the majority shareholder of my company. Now for my number 2, I will tell you that he wrote a check and has equity. So I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me that makes me feel, a little bit better. That like, he's, getting a good salary and he's got equity. Right. And so like, we're in this together. And I'm staying connected. It's not like I'm going out fishing every day, man. Like I'm working my butt off growing my personal brand. Because when my personal brand grows, there's gonna be more opportunity for that company, this company. So I'm able to help, my team at Big Fish. I'm able to help Contractor Dynamics. I'm able to, make an impact on audiences and stages and podcasts and things like that, like what we're doing today. Which this is fun for like me and you. Like we're having fun doing this. This isn't even like work. Even though if people knew how much work it was, they wouldn't do it. That's why most podcasts only last like 7 episodes and then they're done. But yeah, man, it's not like I'm not working. I'm just doing the things that bring me joy. I'm not going to stay in something. I've learned that I'm not going to stay doing the same thing. I'm not going to be 65 years old and do the same thing I was always done just because that's what people want me to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, I don't need you to be on my team. Because I want you to be living in your best life. Like if I hire a salesperson, I want to hire the best home improvement salesperson. And if he decides he wants to be an owner one day, great, dude. Like, can I invest in your business? Like, how do I help you? Like, let's do it. Like, it's okay. Like, can we train someone else up before you go or not? Like,
can you give me a few weeks? Like,
yeah. I mean, but like, let's make it work. Because I mean, that's as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to make everybody's dream comes true because my vision has to be so big that everyone else's vision fits under that. If not, they won't follow me, and they're gonna, which is like, that's my biggest fear in life is that I lose someone that like because my vision wasn't big enough to contain them.
Yeah, and I love this so much because I think when people hear that quote, and that's a Milet quote, right? When people hear that, they think, "Oh, my company's vision needs to be so big to fit." No. They need to be able to say, hey, I see what Benny's doing. I see the path that Benny took to get there. And if I can work at his company and learn from him, even if it's an hour a month, that's thousands of dollars in coaching, you know what I'm saying? That I would be getting by, and so am I working a job or am I getting paid 50, 100 grand a year? Or am I really making 200 because I'm getting influenced by Benny every month? You know
what's so interesting? And I don't know if you've ever had this problem, but I think it's because your people sometimes, just like your family, sometimes they know you too well, or they get sick of hearing the same stuff over and over again.
What is Stuman says no, this is biblical. Geez, you're never a hero in your hometown, or man, what is it? Jesus said it. He was like,
Jesus said everything. Everybody else just kind of makes it their own.
Yeah.
But so I will do these, like I've held sales trainings, at my company, and I would get up in front of the room for a day, and and again, I'm actually paying these people to be there, and they're rolling their eyes, they're not taking notes, right?
Yeah.
Or like I got paid $15,000 one time to go talk to a bunch of entrepreneurs who were like literally hanging on every word I had to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, sometimes like I want to go where like I feel like I'm like needed or wanted, I mean, like it's hard. I'm not going to make somebody like I'm tired. I'm done with the days where I'm going to make somebody listen to me.
Yeah. Like
if somebody wants to listen to me, great. It's just interesting though that all people that pay me thousands, but my own team, I have to pay thousands too. And they don't even want to.
I love that. I love it so much. Oh man. Okay. So we got about like 10 minutes left or so. I definitely want to ask you about this. So you guys created the Arena Mastermind, and well, you know what, before that, and I don't normally do this because this episode is all about you and definitely letting the listeners get value from you. But what we were just talking about, like stepping into that purpose that you have as a visionary, or that purpose you have as an entrepreneur. I had a quarterly with one of my fractional integration clients. So I do the integrator side. Who would have thunk it, right? And I walked into his office and it just hit me. It's like he won't reward himself. He's worried that if his team sees him having too much of nice things or doing too much of nice things, he's not a material guy, He spends most of his money on Tony Robbins events. You know what I mean? So not like physical.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing to spend money on.
I walked into this office and it's so funny, like the similarities you see and the little signs you see, because he's got the L-shaped desk from Office Depot that's like $250. You know what I'm saying? And like a monitor, nothing on the walls, a carpet that maybe his previous manager used before or something like that, And I'm like, dude, one, your office is right next to the sales meeting room, which means people are bothering you all day. You know what I'm saying? And he's got a regional director. He's got a market manager and managers of smaller teams, right? He's got the whole structure set up now. And I'm like, you need to take this room in the back here, and then you need to invest in your office, And so he just did that. And I wanted to show you this because I think he'll appreciate it. He just did that. And so this is his office now. And he's starting his own podcast.
Oh, dude, that looks cool, man.
He actually hired an interior decorator and invested in it,
So I know a guy that's going around doing that too for podcasts. Like he actually like makes these studios with the little neon sign, and they got the cool Man, I want to be on that. Is that a podcast setup or is that just an office?
That's his office, but I told him, I was like,
that's a podcast studio.
Yeah, that knowing that I normally do virtual, I was like, you need to set it up for your podcast too. So make sure the background's on point, And
I love that Rhino in the background, man. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Well, his name's Ryan.
Ryan. Okay, that makes sense.
And his team calls him Rhino. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And when people step into their purpose like that, and he's just on fire now.
Oh,
because
yeah.
He feels like a visionary versus he was in the day-to-day. Literally, they could walk into his office and bug him all day. And that's an integrator. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought it was really cool to you were talking about that, and then to see it happen for one of my clients is very cool. But anyways, I definitely wanted to get into the Arena Mastermind, right? Because this is, at least in my circles, and I don't know about your circle, it's a hot topic right now, So, and I told you I went crazy on mastermind events and stuff like that for a while there. And then when my friends in my mastermind had their own events, I went to all those and supported them, and so now I have a very, very good, I guess, temperature of masterminds in general, and I'm still a part of like 3 of them now, you know what I'm saying? And so why did you and Joseph feel the need to create your own?
Well, so me and Joe, just like you, probably ran in the circles with, been exposed, we're early, right? Like guys like us, we're always early, right? Mm-hmm. But the people in our community, the contractor community, home improvement service guys, they're out pounding the pavement, man. They're not in this, they're not in this national scene going to all these things. They might have been to a conference once in their life and that was a big deal for them. And then they went there, they were kind of shy, maybe didn't mingle. And I also saw the same thing that you did probably. I saw a lot of good masterminds. I saw some bad ones. I saw some people that had bad intentions. I saw some good things and bad intention masterminds that I liked. And basically me and Joe said, what if we can just take all of our experiences from our life, all the different cool things that we've gotten to be able to do in our life, and be able to kind of mold that and kind of mix all that stuff up and give it to our community. These are already clients, right? For the most part. And that's kind of what we're doing. So, and we didn't, this is like our, do we make a little bit of money? I think so. But it's a very low, it's very low money, right? So it's not like our main job. I'm still a very successful business owner. I still do really good with my coaching and group coaching, and doing all the other stuff that I'm doing. I did believe that we wanted to make it. I didn't want to do a free one, but then I was like, well, then the problem is I'm going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry in there.
Yeah.
And so what we do now is we take the money and then we figure out how to give it back, right? And so we're doing a meetup in Manhattan. So me and Joe, like I mentioned earlier, are going to see Gary V a little dinner on Monday night. I'm already going to be in Manhattan. Joe lives in New Jersey, so I'm like, hey, spend the night. Let's whoever wants to come in and meet us, we'll rent a conference room in New York City. We'll do a dinner and we'll pay for it. And so we do little pop-ups and things like that. When we're at conferences and events, we'll have a meetup just for our group, right? Instead of because there's always these people that hey, you want to do dinner? I'm like, yeah. But now it's all right, we're doing dinner for our group. It's our family, right? And so it's basically just a family that we've curated. There's an application process, so we don't let any dickhead in. Me and Joe both have to double approve it, right? And so there's a little check and balance on that. We have actually, people always say, oh, that's just a gimmick. I'm like, no, actually we've denied 3 people just because we didn't think they'd be a great fit because we don't want any cancers, right? We don't care if there's 1,000 people in it. We don't care if there's 20 people in it. We just want it to be the right people. And so, that's what we do. And here's the other thing. We're only doing an hour a week on Zoom. And like I said, we have these pop-up events sometimes, and we've thought about maybe doing a retreat and things like that, but there's a lot of these masterminds that bake in. Let's just say it's 30 grand or 40 grand. And it includes all these weekends or retreats and stuff like that. Well, half of them you can't go to anyway, because you're busy with your family or you got stuff going on. So then you basically paid for someone else to have all this fun and, and do that private jet life. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Yeah.
But for the guys that we're trying to mentor and serve, these are hardworking, blue collar, home service and home improvement contractors. And dude, they're tickled pink, man. Like they're getting so much value for the time and the money that they're putting in. I mean, I had a guy last week. He was talking to me about his supplier, and I was telling him about, hey, said, you know about rebate programs? He's like, no.
Yeah.
I go, oh, we got to negotiate a rebate program with your supplier. Did I save this dude $60,000?
Hell yeah.
He paid like $7,000 to be in the mastermind for a whole year. Like, I mean, like, boom, that quick. Like one just poof, right, popped right out of my mouth. It's, you know, and then all the connections, right? Like I can connect people through my relationship currency. That's the real currency right now, right?
Yes.
Is this equity and relationships that I've been building up through consistency. You know, I'm not consistent in a lot of things in my life, like task work, but I'm super consistent in building long-lasting, strong relationships. And so when someone needs help, and someone needs help with sales. All right, cool, man. Like I know Doug. Like I know Doug's a good guy. Claudio vouches for Doug. I'm gonna vouch for Doug. Like, boom, Taggart vouches for Doug. Like, all right, Doug. Like, hey, can you help this guy with sales? Right? It's instant. No one's got to do an interview process, right? And so, like, when you can cut through all that noise, think about how much time you're saving somebody, whether they had to go interview 12 sales coaches or try to figure out which one's the real deal, which one's the Grant Cardone, the Jordan Belfort, or the Doug Mitchell, right? Like, who's the nice guy, right? And so that's what I love about the power of peer groups. And I think that, we just started in November. I've already got 40 members. It's pretty exciting. People are knocking down the door to join. So if anybody wants to, I think they can go to arenamastermind.co, but there's an application process. So make sure you don't suck.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love it when it starts this way, because that's one thing I was going to point out. You know, I can run the numbers. I can see the math, you know what I'm saying? 40 members, you guys aren't making the money that you make in your other ventures. You're doing this out of purpose. You know what I'm saying? Now, eventually we'll get there 100%, and it should.
But then we're going to hire other people to help run it, because like we don't even really want to run it now. I mean, it's too much work.
Want to be able to drop in, have some fun, and get out.
Dude, I want to be able to I want to have awesome conversations with awesome people, and I just want to curate my own, it's almost like having a party every week virtually. And then bringing in all my expert friends to be speakers and give them an audience, right? And so, that's what we do. We bring in speakers from outside and put them right in touch with our audience and say, here, like we had a finance guy on before. We had a couple sales guys on. We had Chad Wright, the ex-Navy SEAL. Like we actually paid. So like Chad, we had to pay, right? We paid $5,000. We had to write Chad a check for $5,000. I'm going to try to negotiate a deal with Gary Vee. He doesn't know this yet. I'm going to hit him up at dinner in a couple of weeks. He's got a new book coming out called Day Trading Attention. And I know Gary likes to do a trade because I traded him for that podcast. I traded him a bunch of V-Friends cards. And then I somehow finagled my way on. It was wild. It was wild. You got to know how Gary works. So I'm going to try to do a deal where I buy a bunch of his books and see if he'll do an hour with my audience, right? And so that right there, to be in a room with Gary just through my connection, like that I've already
the whole year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's not even close. So we're trying to give it all away, brother.
Yeah. I want to respect your time. I want to thank you.
Yeah, I do gotta go, man. I got a meeting. Somebody wants to buy my company today.
Oh, let's get it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Coming to do it.
Hopefully we got your energy right. We got your energy right to have that conversation, man. I love it.
Right,
so much for coming on the show. I've had a blast with you. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're listening, jump in the show notes. All the links are going to be in there to connect with Benny, follow Benny, and definitely benefit from his influence. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, let's get building.